Yes. Here we are. Hi there. My name's Irralee Andrzejowska, and I'm a physiotherapist and SIRPA practitioner. And today I'm looking forward to chatting with Gill, who's a physiotherapist and SIRPA practitioner and cat owner, by the looks of it. Hi, Gill.
Hi there. Nice to meet you again.
Nice to see you. And I'm hoping my cat might join me as well, and they could chat with each other.
He has a habit. Yeah, this one here. As soon as I am involved in something on the screen, he will make his presence. He joins all the team meetings.
That's very friendly of him. As long as he doesn't press the wrong button and take us offline, we'll be good about that. So hopefully we might have some people who are able to join us at this time and participate in the discussion or ask us any questions or anything. But either way, we can have a little chat. And
have a chat, yeah.
Indeed, a little chat, because it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we're both physiotherapists, but we work in very different settings to each other. So no doubt have very different experiences with trying to bring the SIRPA work into those settings. But first of all, Gill, I'm curious to find out how you even came across the SIRPA training and world in the first place. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I have been working in the pain world for quite a long time, since 2000, and I moved to work in a different kind of way with pain, a more psychologically informed way of working with people with pain, because I became really quite not impressed with the traditional physiotherapy approach. It didn't really seem to offer any long-term benefits. So I made a switch to work in interdisciplinary teams, which meant that I held a small portion of the process of change with people, and the other team members held the different bits. So that's kind of how I made a change into working with pain full time. And I've been doing that for really quite a long time, using various different psychological approaches, CBT, ACT, trained to do mindfulness, which I really loved, and kind of going down a more kind of somatic embodied route. Really, really loved that. Having lots of enjoyment and success with that. And then in 2000, I think it was 2018 or 2019, a referral came to the team from a GP asking specifically for the SIRPA approach. And I thought, what's that? I don't know anything about SIRPA. So I did a little bit of research. Yeah, so I kind of just explored. And one of the SIRPA practitioners had some, I think she had a website or a group or something anyway. So I kind of explored that and thought, okay, it very much aligned with what what was happening in the service, except it was just a slightly different way in. So I kind of tried to navigate my way around that. Didn't have to be honest, didn't really do an awful lot with it. Didn't have much time to do anything with that. But then I think that was about 2018. Then 2020, in the midst of COVID, I thought, okay, perfect time to do the training. So I joined the SIRPA practitioner training. I think it was January 2020-ish, I think. So I went through the training, and I think the bit that landed mostly is that the key message is that you're talking about recovery rather than, living with, which is the team that I work in, which we describe ourselves as a living with pain and fatigue service. And the SIRPA approach was talking about recovery, and it involves a slightly different approach to achieving recovery, but in essence, we're kind of doing the same work in a slightly different way. But what I loved about the SIRPA work was it was specifically saying that we could offer a pathway to recovery, which was just music to my ears, and just a very, very different message, really, a very different space to be occupying when you're working with someone that you're talking about recovery versus living with. So yeah,
did you notice that land differently with your clients when you kind of changed that and brought in that, because you were doing lots of mindfulness and psychological therapies already? So do you notice it landing differently, the concept
I think
of recovery?
I think it really does. I think it opens that door to hope instantly, because you're talking about a very different process. Now, very careful about who I would share that idea of recovery with, as opposed to who because I wouldn't suggest that everybody that comes through. But yes, I think it does. It definitely supports a different process, which is lovely. It's nice to be able to sit with someone and say that you can offer them an avenue to recovery versus you can offer them an avenue to living with. It's very different. So it's nice. So, it's opened a door for me to explore talking about recovery versus.
Nice for the patient, but also nice for the therapist to think.
Definitely,
that, maybe
it's different. Yeah.
Fantastic. And how does the rest of, because you did this the SIRPA training, which was kind of outside what other people were doing in your team, perhaps? I don't know if anyone else has done SIRPA training in your team.
No.
How is that?
Yeah. Well, I think I discussed it initially with just a small group of physios, and I have to mention, it didn't land very well. The SIRPA approach didn't land very well, which I don't know why. It just didn't. I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, does it? Why things don't kind of line up. But I think things have changed since more of the SIRPA's more aligned now with the kind of the American side. I think SIRPA always was aligned. However, it feels like things have joined forces a little bit. So it feels like there's more alignment. So there's definitely more talk of recovery, as opposed to,
and I guess when there's more people talking about it, more organizations across the world saying the same thing, it kind of, the voice gets louder, doesn't it? It's rather than a little whisper in the woods, it's coming from all angles. At a certain point, people might start listening when it comes from different angles, perhaps.
Yeah, I think there is more talk of recovery, isn't there? I think there, from the pain science, I think it all feels like things are moving into a slightly different alignment, and recovery is now being discussed as a possibility rather than not, if that makes sense.
I've certainly noticed Professor Lorimer Moseley now uses the R word, which he hadn't done in the past. So he's got a big voice and an influence. So what he says, people listen to and respect, don't they? So I think it's very powerful that he's offering that as a possibility. But like we say, we know it may not be possible for everybody, but it actually opens it up as a possibility if people are able to engage or open to the idea.
And I think that's where you're braver than me, because you work as a practitioner in a private practice, I believe. Is that right? So it is, or not? No, I don't know. I don't know where you work, but it's it can be tricky, can't it, to support people through that process when there is other things. So
yeah. Well, I don't know what you mean by brave. Do you mean because I'm not in a team and trying to do this work?
Yeah, not braver in a bad way, in a good way. It's more courageous to be doing this work without.
Well, I don't know about that, but that is just the environment I work in, and trying to bring this work to the private practice environment, it certainly hasn't been easy at all, because we're dealing with what people expect when they come through the door, and they may not know about this work or even the possibility about this work. So I've had to kind of bring a bit more clarity, that people can make appointments and see me in a mind-body appointment for an hour, or they can come and book a physio appointment. And even within, where I work, there's maybe not a full understanding of the work I do because you'd think that, and I'm in a very big private practice, that a large source of my referrals might be from other physiotherapists. But, even within the clinic, there's a bit of a misunderstanding. And a couple of times I have had referrals, they've been people extremely mentally unwell, And I'm like, no, this isn't a referral that's appropriate for me either. But I am in private practice, so that probably has different forces going on in terms of referrals to other clinicians and things like that as well, compared to the NHS. But certainly I come across, resistance with other clinicians, but mainly from real lack of understanding. I think humans quite quickly resist things that they don't understand. That's just being a human, isn't it? And we don't like to not understand things. And it's interesting, like you say, when you try to share what you do with your colleagues, I think we forget how much we've read into it and looked around it and explored it. And how do we distill that down in a way which elicits some curiosity for people who are like starting at ground zero? It's no easy feat, but I'm sure you will have spread some seeds of curiosity. And like you say, then they start to hear it from here and here and here, and things, like you say, starting to move in that direction.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. And I think the idea of recovery is definitely filtering out, and there's definitely more of a unified approach, but with selected, I guess, with different people, it's a different approach depending on where they are. So
yeah. Do you have a way of kind of finding out whether to bring in the SIRPA work to your client, or to, go more down the mindfulness route, or or do you do sort of similar things with the?
It's a similar approach with everybody, really, in that trying to get them to, but I guess that's the difference in the acceptance of where they're at is with a view to make changes and recover, as opposed to, I think sometimes the acceptance has been missing. As I kind of look back, I think sometimes acceptance can be misunderstood in that people think it's resigning, whereas acceptance is accepting what is now, so that you can accept all of that, thoughts, feelings, emotions, circumstances, and then from there make changes and recover. So I think we all kind of, I think within the team, do that, but just start at slightly different points depending on what our professions are. But yeah, the resistance
and
can.
That's the big issue, isn't it? Resistance is the opposite of acceptance. Resistance, people are in battle mode with the diagnosis, with their body part that's hurting, or with their situation. And as long as we're enmeshed in battle, we can't have a solution, because we're kind of so narrow focused to fight that there's no way we can solve the problem. And to solve the problem, we have to first of all stop the fight, which is the acceptance bit, and just see where we're at, and slow it all down. And the acceptance piece is enormous, isn't it, before we get out of battle mode and free up a space for other possibilities.
And sometimes I think the acceptance bit can be really tricky for people, and because of what that involves accepting, and how I kind of see things, and that it makes people really cling on to a mechanical diagnosis. And even after doing loads of really what feels like thorough education, kind of exploring, through kind of the SIRPA way, the Lauren Worsley way, all of that kind of neuroscience education, nervous system education. Some people just really struggle to let go, but because it's too difficult, or there's too much else that holding on to that mechanical diagnosis is protecting them from. I think that's the tricky bit, really.
There's so many forces against acceptance, isn't there, in society, in the medical profession, within their own minds, within Dr. Google searches. There's so many voices saying the opposite of what we've discovered. And that's why, and I think also when the people are in that fight mode, they probably can't take a lot of information on, or they're kind of not maybe in a receptive state sometimes when we're presenting new information to them, and we're trying to find a way of inspiring them with recovery stories. You know, look, here's other people who have been in a similar situation and they have recovered, or finding ways to question the behavior of their symptoms, which makes them look at it a bit differently, which I find that point of exploration of finding the evidence within their own story, which shows the inconsistencies that may speak to it not being a structural problem because of the way the symptoms behave or respond to different people or places or events. And then they can start to, you know, get a bit curious themselves that, oh yeah, it's weird how when I drive to my mother-in-law's, my back pain is so much worse than when I'm, you know, driving to my daughter's house and it's not a dissimilar distance or something, like, you know, just those little inconsistencies which you're totally unaware of, aren't you, as a patient yourself, when you're experiencing these different things until someone helps you explore them a little bit more deeply.
Yeah, and I love that bit of work that has come off the relearn your pain bit, that kind of the list of inconsistencies. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they, you know, to really, to really, you know, to look at the contextual factors that are contributing to changes in symptoms and supporting people to unhook, I guess, from some of that, really, which can be really tricky because it's protective for them sometimes. You know, that those are the ones that I really struggle with. That even though that I've supported them to do a lot of that work, it's tricky. So
yeah, that's it. People's living circumstances can be playing a big role in their situation, and that complexity probably informs us as to what, you know, how we kind of approach that, because after all, their symptoms are protective, and almost, you know, if they've got symptoms, it kind of gives them permission to reach out for help, reach out for connection, reach out for support. And for some people, they may not have other reasons or channels for that.
And that's okay, isn't it? That's okay, really.
That's okay. Yeah, exactly. And I think as long as they can have an understanding about the protective nature of pain, it can help just reduce the fear about it, which, you know, is perpetuating it. But if they can understand that the body's not against them, the mind's not against them, that it's just sending up some warning flares saying, I'm not feeling safe, or I'm not feeling certain, or I'm feeling disconnected, then we can start to guide them to get a bit curious to what is the message this pain is sending. Then, rather than us thinking it's sending the message that I'm damaged and broken and I can't use my body, it's about, well, I wonder if it's a message that's asking for something not being met in my life, in, you know, between or also within us. Are we being very critical and shaming ourselves and attacking ourselves, not even realizing we're doing it because it's so normalized? It's just something
it happens to it. And it just happens, doesn't it? That's kind of what happens, and it's supporting them to realize and normalize it. That's kind of what happens, but supporting them to be more aware so they can recognize how they can step away from that and do things in service of where they want to be going. And that's part of the recovery, isn't it? You know, not just recover from, not just change the symptoms, but change their way they can live their life. So that's the nice bit, isn't it, really, when you've sowed the seeds and supported them to understand things differently, and then you can then start to see the changes. Although we sometimes don't see the changes in the time that we're with them. Sometimes the changes happen after, not even necessarily in the short term. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, doesn't it, for the information to.
Do you have
sorry?
Do you have a fixed number of sessions that how does it work if a patient comes to your pain clinic?
We don't. As probably roughly 6 sessions, I would say, that we could offer. It's not that that's a capped level. Potentially more could be offered. So we are in a a good position, really. And that could be 6 sessions with different clinicians, so that, you know, there's different clinicians in the team. So yeah, we are lucky in that we can offer lots of support, and it's
So
not
that's
indefinite.
6 sessions per clinician, or 6 sessions in total, which could be with different clinicians?
That could be 6 sessions each clinician. So I'm one of the physios in the team. I also work with occupational therapists, so potentially they could offer 6 sessions. We also have clinical psychologists who could offer 6 sessions. There isn't a cap on 6 sessions if progress is being made and it's in service of them living a better life, potentially more, but we can't, it's not indefinite. And it's not often that we offer extended periods of working. It kind of does depends, you know, on who the person is. But yeah, it is. But the NHS is changing. You know, I work in the NHS, and the model is changing, so there is a bigger squeeze to do less, to make bigger changes with less input. So it's lovely to hear, you know, that SIRPA's doing its magic outside of the NHS, and clinicians are doing this work outside the NHS, because that's the important bit, really. It's being squeezed everywhere else. You know, pain and persistent symptoms, they don't get a lot of space in normal healthcare. So for clinicians to be doing this work outside is the magic, really. Yeah.
Well, I mean, SIRPA would love to have more impact in the NHS and move into the NHS, but there's more constraints to that, you know, happening, and maybe slower for NHS to adopt something new. And whereas in private practice, there's more of an opportunity to use these strategies and approaches. But ultimately, we want it to be accessible.
Yeah. And I think the kind of SIRPA approach is filtering without it being called SIRPA necessarily, in that, you know, SIRPA is about recovery and recognising that mind and body tools are helpful for recovery. And I think it is, you know, it is there. It's just not called SIRPA. And I think and I think the difficulty is with some of the SIRPA things is they do lie slightly outside of, or more into, a scope of practice that would be seen more psychological. So within the NHS, it's just slightly trickier, really. But I think it's changing.
Yeah, and hopefully, because I like to say that where the SIRPA approach and the strategies we use are working with the stress physiology. And that we're not talk therapy trying to talk through, you know, everything, but we need to get a little understanding about what people have experienced growing up, and getting an understanding how their nervous system has been trained to see what is threatening or not, especially in an emotional, relational sense. But then I justify it by saying, but then what we do then, the strategies are in the body. And we are physical therapists. So the strategies are somatic strategies of somatic inquiry and emotional expression and processing, and they are body-based strategies, as opposed to purely cognitive. Of course, education is a large part of the approach, and addressing fears and misunderstandings about the pain, but the actual strategies are the ones. I mean, I especially love somatic tracking, because it gives such an opportunity for patients to experience a different relationship towards their symptoms, a curious one, a kind of calm, open one, and by observing their sensations without resisting them or fighting them or getting annoyed of them or upset about them, what inevitably happens is the sensation that's being observed changes. It might move, it might go up, it might go down, and even though they're not moving. And it's such brilliant evidence for someone to experience that their pain can change and move even though they're not moving, and helps them understand a structural problem wouldn't behave like that, and gives them a little inkling, if it does do that, this could be a neuroplastic symptom open to rewiring sort of strategies in a way that is, the experience of that is so powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's how I use mindfulness. To be fair, and it's how I didn't realise, but when I was using the mindfulness, that's what it was, because it was a little bit before I came in contact with the concept of somatic tracking, but the two have kind of merged. And I used it to. I broke my wrist in 2013, and I share this with quite a lot of patients that I work with. I used mindfulness, which I now realise is somatic tracking, to recover. I did a lot of, because I was terrified, because it was quite swollen. So I was just terrified that I wasn't going to be able to do yoga. I don't do a lot of yoga, that's the irony, but I was terrified that I wasn't going to be able to do downward dog. It was ridiculous. But it was this really, really strong belief that I really needed to maintain my function. And I was told at my follow-up that I had wasn't osteopenia. But it was the changes before that, and I was devastated. It really didn't make sense. I was like, right, I've got to do some weight bearing. So I did loads and loads of weight bearing through my hand, using mindfulness. What was mindfulness, but is actually somatic tracking, to really notice the sensations and just separate the fear from the sensation, because I'd done a lot of mindfulness practice. I think it takes practice to do that. And it took some time, and obviously function didn't change overnight, but it definitely enabled me to engage with movement, lessen the fear, and recover from that. I genuinely think if I didn't have the knowledge of that's kind of somatic tracking mindfulness, it wouldn't have recovered the same. Which, I share that with people, and I practice. I encourage people to practice it. It's so valuable, isn't it? Really, yeah.
Oh, and to have your own experience is a really powerful learning for ourselves, and being able to share that, like you say, helps patients realize that you can relate to the fears that they might have and the challenges they might have in facing pain and trying to be with it without falling into fear. And
but it's instant, isn't it? As soon as you experience pain, instantly you go into fear, even though you know that you don't need to be afraid. You can't help it. It's just instant. It's automatic, isn't it? So being able to it is. I also use the same approach on a frozen shoulder. Over a period of over a period of time. Obviously, a frozen shoulder takes a couple of years to recover, I think, without medical intervention. But I was desperate not to have to use a medical approach. I just thought it felt so alien to be kind of injected, or it just didn't make sense. And it was overuse. It was under self-care, all of those factors that contribute to your system being overactivated. And so kind of used a similar kind of approach in the very, very early stages, when it was very, very painful, to be able to just engage with the little bit of movement, all that kind of all the helpful stuff that we know is helpful, but it's difficult to do.
That's fascinating. And when you look back at the period of time when that happened, is that what you found, that you were just doing too much and almost like your body was taking your shoulder out to make you slow down and
definitely
reconsider?
I definitely it was after just a period of a lot of life in that it kind of a lot of life and going on that it happened. And so it was a helpful process. But I'd also been through a process post-COVID of really just kind of leaning into what tips stress into a kind of more of an unhelpful place, to kind of understand that bit. So I was kind of just building that understanding, so that it can help shape and kind of inform what you do. So too much life.
So how long did it take you to recover from? How long did it take for your shoulder to recover, Gill, from that terrible pain, which is extremely painful and sleep and
and I didn't have it diagnosed. As a physio, you don't do the go and get a diagnosis. My daughter's like, you've not even been to the doctors. I said, it's a frozen shoulder, don't worry. I kind of know what it is. Intensely painful. Yeah, it's funny.
Yes, very much
Um,
so.
yeah, it took, it was very painful. The classic, really, it was probably less than 6 months. It was very painful. It's probably very painful, probably about 3 months, very restricted in movement. And then then I could move into the next phase. So it probably did release the beginning phase slightly quicker. So this was October 23. So I'm still recovering the strength. So moved on to doing kind of the strength training. So it didn't necessarily shorten the whole process, but it definitely shortened that first window of painful, really painful bit.
Acute.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And I think there was a lot caught up. Talk about frozen shoulders, don't you? And kind of being frozen and kind of trapped in, whether, I'm saying trapped emotion there, but repressed emotion, whatever it is. But there was a lot, there was really, a lot. So that was 23. I lost my mum in 2019. Just lots of stuff going on. So there's a lot, and just I think that I think what I feel frustrated about with the world at the minute is we've all been through a huge pandemic and COVID, and it almost feels like that's been kind of swept under the carpet. It's kind of been forgotten that was actually a massive, big upheaval for lots of people. So yeah,
a major impact, and a lot of people, have been just sort of trying to crack on, but don't realise how fear has gone into their system, and charge, and people are suffering losses of all different types, which may not have been processed, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because frozen shoulders, as physios, we traditionally learn it happens around, it's the 50-year-old shoulder, isn't it? That's what they call it, and it's not really surprising, isn't it? Because it can be a time when there's lots of responsibilities and stresses, and we're juggling and holding up lots of people in our lives around that time. And I don't think it's a random event. I think it's a culmination, a tipping point that can happen, can't it? And the interesting thing about doing the SIRPA training and the mind-body work is you start to become curious about why it's come on, and then that can help you with addressing the root causes of it, from that stress and emotional point of view, kind of thing.
But it does. Sometimes it takes sometimes it takes the message quite a long time to land, doesn't it? So that still didn't land the message that I was over delivering, really. I have to be honest. With the frozen shoulder, it took an episode of nearly reaching burnout in 2020. Oh, I forget when that was. 20. Oh no, that was before then, actually. Yeah. So the frozen shoulder was after. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that the kind of
the overgiving, and your shoulders like, come back.
Yeah, so the frozen shoulder. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So, but I think amidst the hormonal changes with the loss of protective factors from kind of hormones and menopause and all the rest of it, it all kind of makes sense, doesn't it? But we forget that we can't. Can't continue.
Exactly, and I think you're right. I think the issue of menopause is we lose those protective hormones, and then what it was protecting can come forth to the surface a bit more. We kind of lose a bit of that stress resilience, perhaps, and so what we've been managing actually hits a tipping point into symptoms, which is why menopause is part of the equation, but not the reason.
Not the reason. No,
fact,
just
no, it's part of the puzzle that's contributing to the system feeling overloaded and overwhelmed, and then needing to cry out for assistance through our body. And of course, with frozen shoulder, it's one of those things that there are physical changes in the body happening as well as the pain, isn't it, in a response to all this global kind of locking down, bracing that happens in the shoulder in a really protective way. And because the shoulder is so mobile, I don't think it takes too kindly to being locked down, because then it kind of pinches and nips and gets irritated, and it's supposed to be a joint that's free and and flowing. And when it kind of gets all braced and tight, it really it doesn't like that. It gets very painful to be nipped.
Sorry, my cat's joined us again.
That's all right. We like a bit of cat therapy as well. I think we should have more cats doing this. What do you think? Imagine.
Yeah, cats. They're very soothing, aren't they? You instantly feel the activation of your parasympathetic as soon as I just have to hear the purr now. It's conditioned, and that's all part of the thing, isn't it? You know, if I hear the cat purring, it's just soothing. It's lovely. Yeah.
That's why it's so beautiful, because when you're with a cat, like, it's such a mindful experience, and you can lovely input of feeling their fur, and then you can hear, not just hear, you feel it vibrating in your body. They're purring, and you see the pleasure that they're having. So it's using lots of senses, isn't it? And we just experiencing their pleasure, and we can kind of absorb that as well. And our cat, I don't know about yours, but our younger cat, she has this habit in the morning of doesn't eat food straight away. She races upstairs and just has a full-on kind of smooching session with whoever's up in the bedroom, whoever's got the tea. And it's just the most delightful way to start the day, literally starting the day with having a cat smooching us. And I'm sure dog owners have similar things. And not all cats behave like that, or they may behave at different times of day, but
I heard somewhere, which is slightly, that the cats come and check on you because they're actually just checking that you're still alive.
Oh, really?
Because part of their, you know, I don't know where I read that. I heard that somewhere. But yeah, that's why they come and check on you. They, you know, and they paw you in the morning. They're actually just checking.
Still alive. Are you still breathing?
You're still breathing. But
surely it's only to make sure they get food. I think it's still cupboard love. What do you think?
It's cupboard love, definitely. Yeah.
But they are animals are such a lovely resource for the nervous system, aren't they? I love using animals. Even just watching programs about animals, you know, regulates my nervous system. As long as it's not the latest one by David Attenborough, because it's quite brutal with it being, you know, life in the savannah, and you go through the whole gamut of emotions watching that.
I'm not so good on them, but it is good to watch, isn't it? It's good to give your nervous system that flexibility to just allow it to just experience that, and then know that it's not real, and know that you can just regain your composure afterwards. But it's not pleasant.
Absolutely. You're right. It's a nice, safe way to experience that roller coaster of emotions and be okay about it. Yeah, I love that. So you have had some experiences yourself, which has been interesting to translate to your patients.
Yeah, and you know, it's always tricky, isn't it? To you know, there's different schools of thought, isn't there, with how much you share with people when you're working with them as to what you've experienced. But I only share I share the hand and the throat, because actually it's just really helpful to be able to understand how. And the interesting is when I still sometimes get episodes with my hand. So if I had one episode, I was doing some exams, and my hand just started to swell up because I was stressed. I wasn't using my hand or anything. It was fascinating to just witness a physiological change. My fingers in my hand were turning into little sausages, and it was like, what's going on? And I wasn't using my hand. It wasn't anything physical, but it was literally my hand was responding. My body was responding with a threat response, and how I make sense of it is the last episode of threat was falling over, experiencing this, and my body just remembered this experience. It really was quite fascinating.
That's interesting. Were you studying at the time or doing exams at the time you fell over, or not?
No, it wasn't. It was a tricky time. So it was a stressful time when I fell over, and it was a stressful time when I was doing the exams. So the link was the stress. It was a different stress, but I think the link was the activation, I think, So yeah, it was
That's
quite
interesting.
it was quite surreal
It's like
because
it activates that pathway again of almost like a reaction to injury, linking the stress to rest, and even though it was a different stress, it was
different
still a
stress. It
pressure
was
on
a
your skin.
it was call it an emotional stress. The exams, I guess, cognitive emotional stress, and the injury was a physical stress, but the link, it really was quite fascinating, but actually quite unnerving to sit there and kind of witness your hand going through a kind of swelling up in front of you. It was quite bizarre, but even with the
That's
knowledge,
fascinating, isn't it?
yeah,
it never ceases to amaze me how
no,
the body can respond, and how old areas of previous structural injury, because obviously your wrist was a structural injury, and yet, like you say, if we have a structural injury around the time of high stress, and sometimes people might have the perspective that we can have a structural injury because it's high stress, and we may be a little bit discombobulated because of the way the stress is affecting our nervous system and where our focus is and our attention. Not always, but sometimes, that could maybe lead to us having an injury. But also, if we have an injury and we're in a state of high stress, then the nervous system can be more reactive to it. Did you find the recovery of your wrist, or the sort of the way your wrist injury played out, did that seem to follow a normal course of events for you at the time when you had it?
I think it was. It did. I think it was. Well, actually, no, I'm lying. It was a little bit slower. So it was a little bit slower than I would have anticipated, and it took it took a bit of time for the movement to recover, but it's recovered now. Still experience pain on weight bearing sometimes, not all the time. Depends how intense, and it depends how activated, I guess. But so I would say, it's surprising, isn't it, when you experience something as somebody who knows how it should go, when you're experiencing it and it doesn't happen quite as you think it should. It's kind of like, oh, what's going on? But it
makes sense, doesn't it? If your system's more sensitized, are going to be more sensitive, then things are going to take a little bit longer to calm and settle and come back to safety as it's healing. But yes, it's just a fascinating now little potential warning light that can be on your dashboard now if pressure's getting too much, or you're not keeping in balance with things. And so it's really interesting how we can maybe get the view of when these types of neuroplastic symptoms come up, that they're actually quite helpful and full of information, and maybe calling us to kind of pause and consider
pay attention.
Pay attention. There's something that's balance, and how can I address that, rather than being scared and of something being wrong, and obviously checking things out if that is the case, of something unusual happening. Always ruling out anything medical or disease or damage wise before we jump to a conclusion. But if we're having a similar symptom to what we've had before, then our suspicions can go much more towards the neuroplastic side of things. I haven't had injury so much to compare that with, except I did have for about a year I had like a pain in my bum, shall we say. And I didn't, and again, like you, I didn't see anyone about it. I just sort of thought, oh well, this is kind of just before I started doing the SIRPA sort of training, and I could still play racquetball and walk and cycle, but I couldn't run at all. And I thought, that's interesting. That's weird, because you can imagine running around a racquetball court's pretty ballistic, and yet I couldn't run. But what I found was interesting in reflection, because what happened was I got to reading about the mind body sort of stuff, and I suddenly realized I started to take my mind off it being physical, and I wasn't trying to do I wasn't stretching it, or I wasn't treating it either way. I was just thinking, oh well, I won't run. I was just doing avoidance tactics, which was a shame because I actually do enjoy it. But in the moment, I just thought, oh, well, I just won't run, never mind. So I didn't really address it. But then it got to my understanding that, oh, who or what is a pain in my bum at the moment? And it made me kind of think about it a bit more. And then it came to my attention what I was actually not addressing or keeping in, something I was not facing consciously, something I was just shoving away, storing it down there out of my awareness where I didn't have to deal with it. And once I realized that was going on, I got curious and I dealt with it. And my pain went very quickly. And next thing you know, I'm running, straight away, just with such joy, knowing there's nothing wrong with my body. I can just go for it. And I had such a nice time. But I think the difference is with running, the other sports, I was always playing with other people, or my focus was on a ball, or, where I was going. But with running, activity can get into your head, and I think I must have been getting into my head and churning over the thing that I didn't realize was related to it. And that was triggering the pain that made me stop running. Plus or minus, maybe the running was just an extra physical stress on top of that emotional stress, which just tipped me over the edge kind of thing. So I don't know which one it was, but it could have been either or both. But once I understood that my body was fine, then the fear went and the pain went. But so that was amazing.
It doesn't have to be one or the other, doesn't it? It can be both. It can be kind of the feedback down or the feedback up. I think sometimes we get a little bit too caught up on trying to pinpoint, whereas actually if we just address all, it's going to be really helpful, because most experiences have contributions from all sorts of different bits. It's never one, is it, really? I sometimes find
we can't always know.
You can't know, really. Just that's it, isn't it? It's just getting curious and exploring and being open to whatever arises, really. So, I'm pleased you got back to running.
So that was a nice joy to return to, and like you say, even though I don't know all the specifics that came on with it, the main thing was for me to know that there was nothing physically wrong. And once I knew that, and I also, and that wasn't enough, I did have to deal with the emotional reason, and then that also kind of extinguished the need for pain, because otherwise it could be that the pain went from my butt, and then it could have, if I hadn't worked with the root reason, it probably would have turned up somewhere else in my ankle or knee, or who knows where else. It could have turned up somewhere else, and I didn't want that.
I find I have a similar thing. I find if I'm, because we can find ourselves, can't we, in situations where there is too much load, too much of everything, and feeling overwhelmed. I find my knees are my little barometer. And when I notice my knees just complaining a bit, even though I've not done anything different, it's like, okay, you need to learn to be a little bit more flexible in your approach. And I think joints are kind of, pain and stiffness can be something about flexibility, can't they? I think a little bit. So, it kind of makes me think, okay, right, you need to be a little bit more flexible with whatever it is that's going on. Usually it's I'm trying to push through something, whatever it is, I don't know. It doesn't have a consistent that it shows up in a particular way, but it definitely shows up when I'm digging into that, might just need
to take a load off our backpack and give, because it might be that we're carrying too much, and we think we can carry more, and we're doing more. Let's bring it on until the body goes, hang on, that's enough.
That's enough. Sometimes you can't.
The mind saying,
lessen your load. I like that backpack analogy. I was sitting with that a little bit before we came on. I was trying to kind of think about, I really do like that backpack. I've seen another one where people have a glass and they fill a glass and they keep filling a glass until it overflows. But just kind of we can't keep holding everything, can we? But we think we can sometimes.
That's it. I think it's recognizing we have a certain capacity, and if we're tired or there's lots of things going on, we need to be flexible and adjust our demands, because our capacity is reduced. Other times we might be sleeping well and there's less going on, so we've got more capacity, so we can take on more. And I think, like you said earlier, it's developing this sort of flexible system that we are tuned into, so that we can course correct our life and aim to get to that balance. And we don't always get it, doesn't matter, but if we find our edge and we have our warning signs, and then we can kind of pause and consider. Just on the CPD weekend, we were focusing on one of the sessions was focusing on our own well-being and working through the well, which is so important, because we're in a caring profession, and we're here because we decided that we want to give and help others, and that's why we do what we do, and why we wanted to do more training, because we realized our biomedical training wasn't quite enough to give the satisfaction that we were looking for in terms of recovery for chronic symptoms. But we've also just got to remind ourselves that we need to look after ourselves as well, and that this type of work is taxing on our system, especially when you take into context we've got family that needs our emotional support, and as well as our clients, and we need that support as well. And I think a nice reminder in the weekend of making sure we are including ourselves in the care compassion circle, so that we are our best selves for our patients.
And exploring what that means, isn't it? Exploring how offering yourself compassion looks like, because it's different for different people, isn't it? And different depending on what phase of life you're in, what the circumstances are. So it doesn't always look the same, does it? As much as we think it looks like talking to someone, maybe it isn't talking to someone. Maybe it's just acknowledging that it's sitting with some peace and a cup of tea. That's it doesn't have to be anything in particular. It's learning to tune into whatever feels right for you, really, in your given circumstances.
It's so individual, isn't it? And some of the things, like you say, can be very simple, not taking necessarily more time, but maybe making that cup of tea more mindfully, rather than multitasking at the same time and running around like a nincompoop whilst you're trying to juggle 100 things. Trying to find that space to just slow down, tune in, and restore our nervous system.
And just learn to be, isn't it? It is just learning to be, as opposed to learning to do more. I think that balance, isn't it? That's what I've taken from kind of the whole mindfulness and all of that, really. Lovely. That we're driven, aren't we, to? And I think society, is just primes people to think that in order to be worthwhile, successful, all the rest of it, they need to do more. I was just talking to someone. Really frustrates me. Is it the BBC, the Children in Need appeal? They're becoming more and more the ways that they're raising money through pushing a presenter into adversity is shocking. I think Sarah Cox, did she just run 160? And I didn't see it myself. It's just more extreme, and it's like, well, you don't need to break yourself in order to prove that you're valuable, and don't get me wrong, it's commendable, but actually, is it healthy to really push yourself to that limit in service of anything? I don't know. I'm not sure that it actually is, really, because they're getting more.
I know what you mean. Putting out there the message, it's putting out there how much she has been glorified for what she did, which was an incredible feat of endurance. But then it does make people think that maybe you only sort of can generate praise and approval by actually
by pushing yourself. I think I'm good. Yeah, and we need to organise a sponsored meditation or something, or not a meditation, because that's just makes people, distances people from it, doesn't it? Just stroll. Just something. A sponsored gentle stroll. How slowly can you walk around this? Just something, just to kind of emphasize that, through just being, we're valuable members of society. You don't have to prove your worth through pushing and doing, but you know, we're all programmed into that, aren't we? And it is kind of trying to unhook from it, really. And I think that's what we do with people. We help people.
Yeah. Help people slow down and see that there's incredible value in just slowing down and just being. And you know, the problem is we live in a capitalist society would say if you just slow down and just be, you're not going to earn any money, so that's not very good. But we're humans after all, not robots, and we do need to slow down and just be, and actually we go all the time. It's good to have that balance, isn't it, to go, but also to know how to stop and be still. And I think that's when people find it hard to sleep at night, is if they go all day and don't experience periods of stillness or slowing down, then it makes sense why they might be finding that difficult to do at the end of the day when they're pretty revved up, you know. Yeah.
We're not supposed to live in revved up mode all the time, are we? We're supposed to live in slow down mode all the time and access revved up mode some of the time. But it's become discombobulated, hasn't it? We've kind of been led to believe you're best when you're productive and you know. But you don't access your creativity, do you, when you're in that space either? You know, it's fascinating, isn't it? The more you look into it, the more you realise there's so much more that you could understand. But yeah.
And I think society, like you say, is gradually changing from these old ideas of push, and you know, the more you do, the more productive you are, and therefore the more valuable you are in society. I think these other ideas of slowing down and you know, taking time, and you know, terms like mindfulness weren't even like, you know, heard of years ago, and people will say that in general conversation now, and it's and type of movements that people are slowing down, like yoga or tai chi and qigong, or the beauties of just walking or just being in nature have really become more prevalent in our conversations and in the media, and so it's going in the right direction, isn't it? Showing a new way,
isn't it? Yeah. And that enables people then to have the capacity to push when they need to, because it's not about not pushing, is it? It's not about not moving. It's not about moving through life without pushing. It's about being have the capacity to push when you need it, but not being in that space all the time. Yeah, I mean, I doing kind of weight training, you know, strength training now to kind of recover beyond this, which I am finding fascinating. You know, as a physio, I've never really embraced resistance training to a big degree. So I'm finding that, you know, really fascinating and incredibly mindful, because you really have to be in your body when you kind of embracing lifting things that are really quite heavy, because that's the purpose. You kind of lift things that are at the edge of your tolerance, you know. But yeah, I find it fascinating.
Although do surprise me at the gym when most people have got earphones in, and they're lifting heavy weights. So I'm wondering how mindfully they are lifting, or what they're listening to, whether that's whether they are disconnected from that, or they are really tuned into what they're doing. I'm not sure.
I really have to tune in, otherwise I can't synchronize my breathing. And I think that's part of that kind of discombobulation a little bit. But if I really have to tune in so I can get my breathing in sync, so I can perform in a way that is manageable, really. Yeah, I find it fascinating.
That safer, doesn't it? It keeps you more aware of not doing something inadvertent to your body. So I think that's good to be tuned in like that and have that interoceptive awareness where you can, you know, listen to your body and know whether you can lift it the 8th time, or whether number 7 was plenty, and that you've got to
definitely
on to a rest period. Yeah. Oh, well done. Good for you, and getting strong, and you know, just keeping curious about that journey is so interesting.
I find it fascinating now. I'm kind of really exploring the edges, the really exploring the stillness and kind of what that brings up, because each time it brings up something different, doesn't it? You kind of sit quiet, different thoughts pop up, different emotions arise. You don't ever reach the end point of that. And then exploring the other end, kind of pushing as hard. I find it really quite, it's become enjoyable. It didn't used to be, but you know, it is enjoyable now because I'm in I've just developed a different ability to be with it. Yeah. In a healthy
It
way.
sounds like a nice balance, aren't you? It's not all about stillness all the time. It's not about pushing all the time. We're just trying to find a balance and a healthiness and a flexibility between these different states. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Do you do some kind of exercise based stuff, or how do you know?
With my clients, or do you mean
with you? I'm just curious, you know, in terms of kind of how do you support how do you challenge your system? Because we're all different, aren't we? You know, we all kind of challenge it in different ways.
Yeah, I play racquetball quite competitively, which is a challenge of focus and holistic movement and managing your mind with competition. I feel like I've got a bit of advantage over my people I play these days with a little bit more awareness about the role the mind plays in terms of visualization and where I put my focus and being able to regulate my nervous system, just enough sympathetic activity to create, you know, that desire to focus in on the ball, but not be so relaxed that I'm a bit, you know, not quite on it, or not so stressed that I impede my performance. So I've become much more aware of how I can manipulate my nervous system state and use that to my advantage.
Have you noticed that that's had an impact on the way you play? I'm guessing it has.
Definitely, yes, it's improved improved the way I play. Because it's not that I've particularly improved my physical skill, but I've improved the, you know, mind and physiology part of it, and that has improved my game definitely. And you know what it's like. A lot of sports like that. You know, I know it's said a lot about golf, especially that if your head's not in the right place, then the ball goes sideways. And I do play golf sometimes as well, but not as often as the racquetball. But I live near the Peak District, so I like going walking and cycling and hiking out there. So I think the next few days are going to be quite cold, so that'll be beautiful. I love a nice cold, brisk, bright walk. So that'd be nice.
Has snow been forecast? I think it has, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think we had a little bit today, and it's not settled here, but I'm sure there'll be some on the tops of the hills in the next few days.
Nice. You'll have a lovely, nice brisk walk. Like it. Nice.
Yes, nice brisk walk. Yeah, lovely. Oh well. Well, thank you very much, Jill. We've come up to the hour now. We could chat for much, much longer because so many fascinating things about the body and the mind and symptoms. But it's been such a pleasure talking.
Lovely to talk. Yeah.
And I hope that people find some value in listening to our chat.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, lovely to talk to you. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.